So we just had another developer live stream for Diablo 4 where we got a ton of new information on the Warlock and Season 12. And while I'm going to have a bunch of other videos going over all of the different pieces of information we learned, I wanted to go over something a bit more specific in this video, and that is playing as the Butcher in Season 12. And we have now gotten it confirmed that that is going to be one of the big mechanics of this season. If you've seen some of my previous videos, I went over a lot of the leaked information we got for Season 12, where we got to take a look at a lot of the season journey objectives, a lot of which pointed towards us being able to play as the Butcher. And now that has been confirmed, but we actually have a lot of information that they're not going to tell us about, that we'll just have to go and learn for ourselves once Season 12 is released. So I want to go over all that information because this is absolutely the most unique mechanic we have gotten in any season so far. Actually being able to go play as the Butcher and have a complete new set of abilities and just go and destroy absolutely everything. And becoming the Butcher seems to be the main focus of the seasonal questline, so we'll probably learn a good bit about it there. But there are seeming to be two ways, or technically three ways, to become the Butcher. First off is in Helltide. There will be a new currency this season called Meaty Offerings. And once you have one of these, you can go to Helltide and there will be these Butcher shrines there that you can go use that consumable at and become the Butcher for a certain amount of time. And once you use it, it starts drawing in and spawning just tons and tons of enemies. And it seems that this is also kind of inspired by kill streaks, where while you're killing anything as a Butcher, you're getting a different currency that we'll go over. And it also seems that the more you kill while you're the Butcher, besides just getting the drops of currency, is that at the end of it, you also get a big chunk of additional currency depending on how many things you actually defeated as the Butcher. And these are going to be in Helltides, and Helltides already have pretty crazy density, so you will definitely be able to get some pretty crazy kill streaks as a Butcher just in Helltides. And then there's also going to be a little bit of a different version of this in Fields of Hatred, which are the PvP areas, meaning a lot of players aren't really going to be going here. So these are more supposed to be the counterpart to the ones in Helltides. And there's just a small event in the Fields of Hatred where I think you're just killing a bunch of enemies, and then at a certain point a bust of the Butcher will spawn, and whoever takes it becomes the Butcher and can just go destroy everybody else for a bit. I have a feeling that one's probably not going to be used a ton by the wider player base. But then we have the most interesting part, and the thing the developers didn't give us any information on and didn't even show any actual footage of this, and this is Slaughterhouses. So Slaughterhouses are going to be a new seasonal dungeon type where you always are the Butcher when you're in these. And that is legitimately all of the information we got on Slaughterhouses. And in the video, the developers explaining this to us did say there would be a bunch of things you can go discover for yourself in this. And I do think we have a good bit of information on what you're going to be able to do in these Slaughterhouses, specifically things like endgame Slaughterhouses having different variants to them and having different floors and having different mastery and other mechanics within them. So I think these Slaughterhouses are actually going to be quite involved with a lot of different systems and things tied into them. And we did also get a graphic showing off all of the Butcher's different abilities, and we do have a full different set of abilities as the Butcher. So 6 different abilities. We have Carve, which is probably like an AoE swipe in front of you. This is probably going to be like his basic skill. We have Calling, which seems to spawn a bunch of his weapons floating around him and spinning around doing AoE damage. We have Molt and Slam, which is probably just a small AoE slam in front of you. Then we have Hail of Hooks, which looks to be just a massive spray of hooks in a direction. My presumption here is that this is a long range cone attack that just pulls everything in that cone to you. Then we have Hell's Charge, which just looks to be a really big charge, and it looks to be quite long, and you can turn and maneuver while you're in it. It also looks to leave fire on the ground maybe when you're doing that. And then his ultimate is Furnace Blast. And if you've played Heroes of the Storm and played the Butcher in that, a lot of these abilities seem to be much more empowered, cooler versions of the Butcher in Heroes of the Storm. All of these things are obviously pretty themed around him, but a lot of them do seem to be taking very heavy inspiration from Heroes of the Storm, which I think is a good thing because that's an incredible game. Now, another big part of playing the Butcher is going to be getting his new currency, which is called fresh meat. And it seems you're going to be using this currency at a new gambling vendor to gamble for bloodied items. And bloodied items are the new item types coming with this season, which will just be something that can be additive on top of everything else you can get on an item. So you'll be able to have a bloodied ancestral item. And depending on what item type it is, it'll either have a hunger affix, a rampage affix, or a feast affix. And all of these affixes play back into your kill streaks. So depending on how many kills you get or what kill streak tier you're on, you will get different benefits. And it seems that a lot of these have been pretty heavily buffed in the patch notes. And if these are on a slot you can stack multiple of, they do actually stack. So specifically things like the health one during the PTR was absolutely crazy. And I think I had like over 120,000 health on a druid. So some of these can get pretty crazy. And while you can get these from a lot of other content of the game and they could just randomly drop anywhere, it seems that playing as the Butcher and collecting all that fresh meat will allow you to just gamble for any of these that you want on any different gear piece in the game. Now, like mentioned, the developers didn't tell us anything about these new Slaughterhouse dungeons. They specifically want us to just go discover them and discover all the different pieces about them. But like I mentioned on the Season 12 PTR, if you used a controller, you could actually get to the season journey page where we got some further information. So there's objectives to complete a slaughterhouse. There's objectives to defeat a certain amount of enemies as the Butcher in a small amount of time, so within 10 seconds. And there's a bunch of different versions of this. So like 100 monsters within 10 seconds on hard difficulty. Then there's like 125 on like Torment 1 or something like that. So ever increasing amounts of kills in a small amount of time as the Butcher. Then there's a journey to defeat Wanderers within slaughterhouses. And I'm still wondering if this was a typo and this is supposed to be Wanderers. That was one of my theories, that we would be facing NPC versions of our playable classes because all of the players in the game are known as Wanderers. So there's still the possibility of that. The only thing they really showed about slaughterhouses is a small amount of non-gameplay footage where they showed a little bit of a dungeon and there was like roadblocks blocked off of areas, but there was a bunch of what would usually be friendly NPCs for us, so just humans within these. So it seems like all of these dungeons are just going to be completely filled with humans and town folk and soldiers and potentially NPC versions of our playable classes that we're going to be running through and slaughtering. And then for another objective, it was complete Slaughterhouse's mastery. So it seems like there is going to be a type of mastery system within these slaughterhouses. My first thought was similar to the Herodic strong rooms, where you have to fill up the different bars, and the higher it goes, the more loot you get from the boss at the end. And if you completely fill it, it just spawns a boss right there. That's what my head goes to, but maybe it'll be a different type of mastery system. And one of the most interesting ones that I think was on one of the final pages of the season journey is splatter at least 75% of the floors in a bloodbath slaughterhouse. Now there's a few pieces of information here. First off, a new slaughter mechanic. So whatever that means, presumably you have to like kill things in a certain amount of time, or maybe get some kill streak as a Butcher or something like that. So there's going to be some mechanic around splattering, but then this also says at least 75% of the floors. So we know in certain slaughterhouses there's going to be more floors. Most likely it'll be the endgame ones that have a bunch of different floors. And then it also says a bloodbath slaughterhouse. So it also seems there may be different types of slaughterhouses, or this could just be the endgame version of slaughterhouses. That's probably what it's going to be, that once you get into the endgame, there'll probably be like a keyed version of slaughterhouses that are called bloodbath slaughterhouses, and those will probably have multiple floors, and maybe that's when this splatter mechanic is introduced. It's also a possibility that the mastery that we're talking about is splatter, so those may be the same things. So it seems that my theory about the slaughterhouse system is actually true. We are actually playing as a Butcher. These are going to be seasonal dungeons where we're going in and just destroying tons of NPCs as a Butcher with a bunch of different mechanics, multi-floored dungeons into the end game. That seems like it's just going to be incredibly fun. Like I mentioned, this is the most unique system that's been added into the game in any season or any expansion. So I'm very curious if this is going to be something that's just fun for a little bit at the start and then gets kind of boring, or if this is something that's legitimately just going to be really fun. I'm kind of 50-50 on how that's going to play out. If they make the Butcher just feel really good to play and you actually get rewarded well for playing as a Butcher, I think he could be something that people want to do for the entirety of their playtime within this season. And this is definitely something I'm very curious to check out, figure out all of the different things within these Slaughterhouse dungeons. And I do also really like that there is a new gambling vendor specifically for these bloodied items that are obtained from fresh meat from just destroying things with the Butcher. And even though this season is quite short, I think it's going to be like 45 days, which is incredibly short for a season. I think this is actually seeming to be a pretty decent season. I wasn't expecting this much to be in a season that would be this short. There's actually quite a lot of things, seeming to be a decent amount of new content and a lot of new items to go chase. So I think it'll be a pretty decent season, especially since it's so short. But that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.